Good morning, guys. Right, so we're back in for third session on Alenor this morning. I am going to get started straight in, I think. Okay, so I've got my bucket of tea this morning. Let's get started. So the last stream we got as far as, obviously you can see now, finished off the cloak, reorientate the cloak, finished off the little fur bits around the back of the skirt, and did the skirt, of course, all this loincloth bit as well. So today we need to do the belt buckle in the middle, like the detail part. Kitsune, thank you for the follow. So yeah, so we're going to do the belt buckle in the middle. Then we're going to do the staff, and it looks to me like we've got a hint of a dagger or something just running down the side here. So I'm going to put a little knife on a little harness coming down from her belt. I think we call it a frog. Oh, thanks for tuning in, Kitsune. It's good to have you in. Shouldn't you be in bed though? I'm always conscious it's a little bit early / late for the American audience at the moment, but I may have to change up the timings, but for now I'm stuck as I am because of the kids. Best time to stream is when the kids aren't here. Right then, so I'm actually going to make another little change as well. It's all good. So I'm going to switch the arms around. So the arm that's got the kind of the extra sleeve thing will be the one on the other side, and that will just help with that balance, because obviously previously the fur and the cape are on there. So I'm just going to pick the two bits I need. Actually, I'm going to have to swap the whole arm on it because it looks awful where I mashed it about. So it's going to isolate them, unisolate them, and then just mirror. And then it just needs a little bit of rotating and rejigging just to make it fit. Master lasso tools, it's a little bit more control. I'm just going to position for things like this. I'm going to position the widget. Crikey, 3 AM. I think I'd die if I saw 3 AM in the morning. I'm normally asleep probably around about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then every single day the kids will wake us up by 7 o'clock no matter what. So another follow, Oliver. Thanks for the follow, Oliver. Thanks for joining. Okay, so yes, I'm going to position the widget with the padlock off. I'm going to move this round so it's lined up with the middle of the shoulder. Same again on this side. I want it lined up with the middle. I'm going to lock the padlock again. Treating yourself with a 4:50 wake up there. I wake up in a foul mood if I'm up at that kind of time. When the kids have sleepovers, their friends come round and they wake up at like 5, half 5, and they want to get downstairs and play Lego. Like a bear with a sore head. Okay, I'll just position it, give it a little move around. I want this staff to be going behind us, so the hand's going to be here, and the arm will run kind of on a diagonal across the back of the skirt. Well, the staff, sorry, will run across the back of the skirt. So I think I need to move the arm backwards a touch and down a touch. Let's just drop the shoulder back into the line thing. Okay, so I think I'm in a good position there for the staff. The other arm is going to come back and just address that now. I think that needs to be up and forwards a little bit more. This is me control and click on the various different parts, and then rotate it round. But you were popular with the parents then, Kitsune. And our kids are 7 and 3. The little one's just going to be 4 in November. She's just had her first sleepover with a friend, so she's buzzing off the back of that at the moment. So she's absolutely loving it, and it was a success, thankfully too. Better reading picture books than playing with Lego, eh? Right, here we go. So I'm going to drop some hands in. Now I can't remember if I left hands in this or I deleted them. Okay, I did delete them. Right, so first thing I'm going to do before I do the hands, I'm going to make the staff, and then that way we can. I just noticed we've got a bit of an anomaly here. Just going to bring the clothing back. So it covers. There's a bit of a. I don't know if you can see it, but there's this bit here's got a dip in it. I'm going to just take my H polish tool, good old H polish, and I'm going to buff that round just to kind of bring up the level. I've got the Alt key depressed, so no worries, Kitsune. You can tune in later and pick up the rest if you like, but thanks for the follow. Have a good day. So yes, we're going to just buff out the thing. I don't like just using the smooth tool. I am using smooth tool at the moment. You'll see on the top left corner the tool icon just up here. That will change. When I press shift, you'll see that change. And might be a bit too small to see on the screen. Whenever I've got the Alt key depressed next to my mouse cursor on the screen, there'll be a little minus, just like that, and that will show you that the I'm pressing Alt. So it's doing the inverse of what it would normally do. Okay, so I think I've dealt with that now, so that should be done yet. Just about. Just flatten that bit bigger down so it's not really seen. Okay. Well, I remember last time on the stream I kept reiterating the point that you need to remember that this is a miniature. This is going to be 32mm in size when it's printed to the eye line. So from the feet to the eyes will be 32mm. So about 34mm tall in total. We want the details to be sculpted to scale perfectly to that scale. So if you sculpt a real person at real size, real scale, with proper thicknesses on clothes and everything else, by the time you shrink it down to a miniature size, it's not going to work anymore. You need to put a lot of exaggerations in, like your belts would need to be like 3 inches thick, clothing about 1 inch thick, you know, just to kind of get anywhere near the visibility on a model that you actually want to achieve. If you ever do see sculpts that look almost realistic and they're saying that they're 32mm scale, it means they've sized it to 32mm scale, but they won't have sculpted the model to be a 32mm scale model. If that makes sense. Hands will be too small, heads will be too small, features will be lost in the prints. So you have to really stylize and exaggerate things to kind of make them work in miniature. So do be mindful for that when you're out there buying STLs, that you're not just sold by pretty renders. Okay, so cloak's done, arms were adjusted. Let's do the staff next. John, hey, good to see you, John. John he's just joined. He's followed, so thanks for the follow there. John used to work with me a good few years back now. Back in my days of doing facilities management and health and safety. He's also a fantastic artist, so I'd encourage you to go and follow him online and look him up on Instagram and that. Is it Jade Monkey John? Jade Monkey Studios or something along those lines. Fire the link in the chat if you like, mate. I'm happy to share the love. Right then, staff. So for the staff, I'm going to do it on a separate tool actually, just so I'm not looking here. Okay, so we got a long wooden staff with the gnarly bit on the top. So I'm going to take the default cylinder, make polymesh 3D, just so I can actually sculpt it and stuff. Stretch it all out, shrink it down, stretch it up. I can adjust the length of this later on, but I think that looks a decent length. Now the staff on the model, on the picture, you'll see is quite fine. Unfortunately, if I sculpt it that thin, it's going to be way too thin for the model, so I'm going to have to thicken it all up fairly significantly. So something like that staff, I'd be looking to make sure that that was somewhere between 1mm and 1.2mm in thickness for the end product. And that'll give you a nice hefty chunky staff that isn't going to just snap off when you're gaming with it. But I'm going to use the mass of the model at the back to support the length of it. Obviously she's holding the staff quite close to the head, so the actual the body of it, where it goes across the back of her, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure it touches the skirt. And then that material then will support the body of the staff when it's being printed, and also stop you having this this free swinging kind of, you know, flexible. Well, flexible depends on the resin, but you know, a free hanging staff that can snap or catch things and twang off. So we'll start with that. It's the best way for me to do the head of this. I can try, let's dynamesh it first. I'm going to use a tool I don't often use. In fact, I can't remember the last time I did use it. Just dynamesh that and polish it up. I'm going to be sculpting a bit of wood grain and a bit of stylising on this stuff anyway, so I'm not too fussed about you can still see like the faces of the sphere. The faces of the cylinder. So, right, I'm going to use, it's a tool called Snakespeare. That's the one. Now it wants Sculptress mode activated for this, and that means it's going to generate dynamic tessellation on the way through. So we've got a kind of a zigzag coming off the one side, so let's just go like that. And then again the other way. I need to shrink the brush size down for the second one. And we'll shrink it down a touch more, and we're going to go the other side. Oh, no, a bit more than that. That hasn't worked at all, has it? You'll fix that though, that's not a problem. So I'm going to go to unmask center, again reposition my widget. I'm just going to remask that bit and then take it up to the top. And then just remask from that angle and just finish off there again. And again, this is going to be wooden, so more organic is what I'm after. Now the other side of the staff, let's get that back again. So the other side of the staff, we're going to go the opposite side. Why does it keep coming forwards? up. And it's forwards again. You know what, I bet it's because I'm coming from the front now. Yeah, it is. The angle I'm approaching it from, it's catching the front angle, it's extruding directly out. So for this one now, I'm just going to come back here. I want this to come down a little bit. And then we're going to take it up. Do you know what? Frustrating. Okay, so this bit here is not going to work as I'm intending. So I'm just going to get this rough shape in. And here's the thing, that it's not always pretty, and it's not what it looks like on the way through. A lot of art goes through like an ugly phase. Whether you're sculpting traditional models, when I used to sculpt in green stuff, there was a hell of a lot of ugly phases in that before you start smoothing everything off. And it's just one of those things that you just grow to accept. So right, I'm going to take that through here. Oh, God. One day I'll get this. Okay. Maybe there's a reason I don't use this tool very often. Okay, so I'm going to just come in with the inflate brush and just blow some of this up. Just thicken up the bits I need thickening. And again, I'm going to come in and clean this up with other brushes in a bit anyway, so I'm not too concerned that it looks a bit gnarly and manky at the moment. Okay, so Dynamesh that. I've got 2.6 million polys going on in this one, or 2.6 million points, which is quite a lot. Excuse me. So next time I do it, next time I do the Dynamesh, I'm going to reduce the count on it, but I'm not going to do it just for the sake of it right now. I'm just going to sculpt a little bit of detail and use the move tools just to push things around. So I want to kind of sharpen up some of these edges, make sure they are, you know, they've got that kind of angular shape that's going on in the picture. So we've got a good hook down on this bit. Then we're going to have, I'm going to mask off the front side so I don't affect it. I only want to work with the back bit for now, just while I'm getting the shapes down. Okay, so we're just going to move that on over here. And again, we're thinking about the minimum thicknesses, because we've got that whole the printing issue going on. We're going to be using obviously supports on the model, where the support is going to contact the model. It's only going to be a very small contact point, so somewhere in the region of 0.2 millimeters up to about 0.4 millimeters tend to be what I use. So the contact point is going to be quite small, but if the width of the whole model is only 1 millimeter, or the diameter is only 1 millimeter, it's still nearly half of it, or potentially nearly half of it. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that there's enough mass and substance in the body of the staff that when we come to remove the supports, we're not, you know, completely annihilating the model, that the detail's not going to be completely obstructed by support material. Thank you for the like. Thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream. I'd love to be able to use a name in that one, but my Japanese, Chinese, etc. But I didn't quite catch what type of characters they were, but unfortunately it's not up to par. fact, unfortunately, I have to say I'm very typically English in that I don't actually speak any other languages more than a bit of a light grasp. I would like to start trying to pick up a bit of German and French. Maybe that's another stream, eh? Watch me fumble my way through another language. Okay, and again, the smoothing tool, when you've got the dynamic tessellation, the sculptress mode set on, when you use the smoothing, it's going to smooth the details out. The best way of showing you this is using the lines on here. So you can see the top of the stuff here is the Dynameshed mesh. When I go over it with the smoothing tool, it's changing the complete structure. So we've actually got square, it's very small, but we've actually got a square mesh that you can just about see there. But when you're using the sculptress mode, it's going to change that to triangles, and you will see that a little bit in the surface of the model if you enlarge the brush size. If I take the brush size even larger and I press down properly, you're going to get that going on. Thanks 40 Kedge. The link in the description is not working. What was the link to? Oh, do you know what? It might be the lionstower.com. I'm building my website at the moment. I've got a new website being built. I'm building it. And I've just redirected the lionstower.com to point at that. And the store's not actually live at the moment, so it'll probably bring up an error page. Cheers, Ty. Thanks for tuning in, but you should be in bed, mate. Yeah, they're not actually proper glasses. They're blue light glasses. If anybody doesn't know, Table Flip Foundry, me and Ty have been friends for ages now, and we work together quite a lot. Ty's done a lot of my supports for me on various projects in the past. He did the whole Kingdom of Telaria's Kickstarter, much to his credit. He did the pin-up Barbarian that I did recently. Yeah, totally, mate. Absolutely, been a couple of years. And yeah, he's a great guy. They do absolutely fantastic work. And if you're into 3D printing, you need to be following. You've got to get onto the... In fact, Ty, I don't know if you want to throw the Discord group server link into the chat group here, but... So yeah, thanks for the follow, 40 Catch. Yeah, Ty's Table Flip Foundry group, it's focused around everything to do with hobbies. So whether you're into there we go, if you're using Discord, hit that up and get following on the server, joining in. There's lots and lots and lots of artists on there, 2D, 3D, and Ty does a lot of free streams because he's a super generous guy. There's a lot of free streams to help you kind of level up your 3D printing. So whether it's supports or understanding how printers work and those kind of things, it's really, really good. He's very knowledgeable, very experienced, and he runs a kind of Etsy store selling prints as well on the top of that. So yeah, if you've got any love of 3D printing or miniatures in general, roleplay games, D&D, tabletop games, you name it, check it out. The server's buzzing at the moment. I think you're over 1,000 members now. He's doing some cool giveaways as well, so he's got a few of my things to put into the giveaway. Got a discount code for everyone as well. Got some free models that have been going up there from the various different partner creators. So there's lots of good stuff. So you gain 750 members, Ty. That's nearly 2,000 members now then. Fantastic. So yes, like I say, absolutely bustling, buzzing community. Super helpful. If you've got a problem with anything, or you're struggling with your printers, or you're new to it, absolutely fantastic time. Yeah, if you 1,700 members on the Tabletop Foundry group, so get over there, have a little look, join up, and yeah, make the most of you know, the generosity and the resources over there. He's also got this awesome tool he worked on called the Cones of Calibration, and if you've ever tried to print off one of these calibration tools like the Amira Labs one, or the little flat, I forget what it's called now, the little flat one on the printer, and then you sat there looking at it, scratching your head, so yeah, so you end up kind of looking at it, trying to interpret it, and then you have to go online and ask people what their opinions are. Ty's mission on this, setting out to make the Cones of Calibration, was to basically make a calibration tool that was like idiot proof, and he's succeeded. You basically pop it in the middle of the plate, run it. It's about an hour long print if you're printing at 25 microns like I do, and at the end of it you've got a very clear, very concise pass or fail, but there is a degree of success, so as long as you're within a range, then you've nailed it. So tableflipfoundry.com, and you'll be able to kind of grab that, and it's a free download again, and it comes with an absolutely awesome model because he's got this cool little mascot called Puck, who's a little juvenile red dragonkin or dragonborn, and he's a feisty little dude, and there's a whole load of stuff coming up to do with him, but he's got the model as an STL file, which again he's very kindly giving away. And yet the 40CAD just said that isn't the base thing with 3D printers a struggle? If you don't struggle, you aren't doing it correct. It depends. To be fair, it's it can be difficult. There's definite learning curves, and every printer is different. The problem is if you go online and start trying to kind of get a you know, I'm trying to think what you call it now. You're trying to get a recipe from somebody else for, you know, configuration or a print set. It's not necessarily going to work. So me and Ty both actually have the exact same printer. We both use the Sonic Mini 4K. Ty's got some Elegoo jobbies now that he likes, but we both have a Sonic Mini 4K. We both use the the Frozen Aqua 4K resin. So we use the exact same resin, we use the exact same settings, we use everything else the same, but my exposure time being in the UK, I need to put about 2.6 seconds I think on my exposure, whereas Ty's runs around about 2 if I remember right. So even though same printer, same resin, the exposure times are not the same, and Ty will tell you a whole load of stuff about exposure and how it's not really to do with the amount of time. It's, you know, there's a whole load of other factors. Like I say, guy's super knowledgeable. You need to check out some of his streams and go and have a little look, and it'll get you a bit of a better insight into what you're doing. But yeah, essentially, I will do one day, but you're gonna have to sleep during the daytime to make sure you're ready for it time. Yeah, and this is it. There are so many factors, and what you need to do, the Cones of Calibration is brilliant because you can pop it on your build plate. You can print it off, look at it yourself, and go, yes, that's a fail, or yes, that's a pass, and then you adjust your settings accordingly, and you suddenly will find you're becoming independent in kind of getting it right. Now, the one thing that always grinds my gears is when you find people lubing the FEP. So if you don't know if you don't know 3D printing, the FEP is the clear plastic membrane that is on the bottom of the resin vat. And when you're printing, you'll hear like a little pop, and that little pop noise is the model, the layers of the model that are completed, separating from the FEP. And a load of people coming into the printing hobby, they kind of go, "Oh, my print's failed. What's going on?" And they go onto the Facebook groups, and then you'll always get somebody kind of go, "Oh, put some lubricate your FEP," and you're adding a chemical into another chemical process without knowing how it's going to react to the resin. So if you put any kind of liquid in contact with your liquid resin, you don't know how it's going to affect it, and it might not affect it in the short term, in the immediate term, but it very well might affect the way the resin is cured. So it might affect the finish, and again, you won't necessarily see this straight away, but at some point down the line it could come back and bite you in the bum. So you just need to be a little bit mindful about these kind of things, and ultimately what it comes down to is if your prints aren't sticking to the FEP and they're pulling off the build plate, you've got your exposure settings wrong, your base layers are wrong, or there's something not right with your actual calibration. And if you really need to, then I would recommend, instead of lubricating your FEP, go out and try the NFEP, which I think a few people have started doing that now, if I remember right, but I think I've seen frozen NFEP. Logan, you talk about the sculpting or the printing, because I hope you know the printing. Thanks for tuning in as well, mate. Yeah, what it always the NFEP is like a non-stick membrane. So I use the NFEP on my printers now, and that pop I was talking about is like a thing of the past. You don't get it anymore. You don't hear that twang. So the printing is like nice and silent and smooth. It's not silent on my EPAX machine because that's got a fan like a jet engine in it. I can't run that while I'm streaming. Losing my train of thought now. So yeah, so like I say, the NFEP will straighten out your lubrication issues, stop the thing from sticking. There's no need to lubricate it because it's already non-stick. In fact, FEP in its very nature is non-stick, so adding a lubricant to a non-stick lubricant to a non-stick surface is just completely defeating the point. But people swear by it, and it's insane to me. So yeah, so instead of using crutches and trying to figure out hacks to make things work, you are much better every single time just learning the correct way to do it, getting to the root of your problem, fault find it. We've got to follow off. Ben Rayner, Ben! another blast from the past. Ben's another mate of mine who's I don't even know if you're working on the models anymore, Ben, but he's a lovely bloke as well. We met him a few times at the shows, and he'd had some really nice models with him in the past, but I don't remember him actually coming out. Thanks for joining in, Ben. Okay, so this gnarly contraption now is the mage stuff. Yeah, do you know, you can try these things as well actually, for the ventilation. The one warning I would give you is make sure you don't put it anywhere near the moving parts of the printer. So it's a little USB chargeable. Oh, you've got them. They're not helping. I need to check mine actually because I didn't think mine was working before when I've used it. And then I saw a little video the other day, and the carbon filter inside was in like a bag. And I don't know if these ones, if you're supposed to actually, remove the filter from the bag. I'm guessing that box is that stuff's supposed to be in the paper in there, or maybe not. I'll have to look at the instructions on it. But so, yeah, I didn't find them to be very useful for me. But equally, I don't also find I have a problem with the smell of the resins. The thing that really smells in my office is the isopropyl, the alcohol. Once you start cleaning the models in that, get the lids off, that stuff like stinks and lingers. So that's it, the IPA, proper stinky. Somebody was telling me to use, is it methylated spirit or something like that? We knew what you meant, Ty. You don't have to correct yourself. It's cool. Yeah, methylated spirit, I think it was, that somebody was recommending. They're saying it's not cheaper. It's, what's the word now? It's cool. Like, it's like, isn't it like 6 AM there or something for you? Like you know, you should be asleep. Like, you should be waking up. Actually, you should just be waking up. I know you've worked through the night. You've been chatting to me all morning. Okay, so gnarly looking stuff. We've got a few angles going on in that side. We're going to just pop a little bit on that side as well, just to give it a bit more interest in the shape. Let's make a few fat bits in there, just to boost up the size a little. And I'm just going to I was going to mask that side off. I'm going to group that. That was a fail. I'm going to group that. I'm going to auto group, which will separate the two bits I've just done. So I'm going to worry about kind of grabbing the wrong piece. So I just want that bit there, and then I'm just going to group that side. That'll allow me to independently isolate that for sculpting the details. So I plan to fix my wife's walk-in closet fitted with some nice cabinets. I think if my wife had a walk-in closet and I even attempted any of that, I think I'd be in massive amounts of trouble. I think we'd be needing counselling after that. I'm just inflating some of these lower areas so the bottom of the stuff has got a bit more heft to it. Don't mind it getting thinner as it goes up, and it's got these two parts touching, so it's going to connect and... Ah, right, fair enough then. Right, so... Everybody needs a painting corner. I've got a painting desk right behind me over here, and I think it's out of view, which is just as well because it is a mess. It's a real mess. Yeah, my painting area is rarely neat, so whenever I do a painting stream, I'll be painting on that desk probably because it's got a bit of better light. And it'll always look spanking clean and lovely, but that totally isn't. It's not the truth. I'll quickly show you over here. That's my painting desk at the moment. Got my paint rack over there. It's half empty because I've got a load of paints that I've been taking up to the house. It's a mess absolutely everywhere. But I haven't painted down here for a while now. I've been doing most of my bits of painting like I say, in the house. But when my office was in the house before, my wife used to have always have an issue with the state of my desk. How can you work in this? Organised chaos. I know where everything is. It might look a mess to the untrained eye. Look, and that's because it's empty, mate. It's all of my stuff is in trays and boxes and stuff up in the living room and the dining table in the house at the moment. So it's usually a lot more packed than that. I've got an airbrush compressor under the desk. I've got my airbrush coming up through a little like desk grommet, little cable grommet, and I've got drawers at the back that are just filled with stuff. And then my models are all in cases and boxes and stuff, and they're all up in the house as well. But this is the problem with doing like new releases every month. When I'm releasing like a dozen or more models, I have to print those models off, and then I'm still trying to paint them and play catch up. Right, I'm gonna keep the groups on. I'm gonna dynamesh this again. I'm gonna turn the resolution down to about 300 on this one now. With the polish on, that should help give it a nice smoother finish. And I'm just going to go down and put some kinks in the staff, so it's not perfectly straight. I don't want it to be too, like, you know, bendy. But let's give it a look of a natural bit of wood. Okay, now I'm just going to come down and with my clay build-up tool, I'm just going to give it a few vertical strikes. A little knot on the corner there. Now I am going to come through this with the All Cracks tool, and that will help it to be a bit more defined, because the All Cracks tool is going to really gouge in. So you need a bit of thickness to this. I don't want to put too much in. I'm not going for like realistic wood grain. This is very stylised again. It's more indicative of wood, just to give it a, you know, I don't want it to look smooth. I don't want it to look like a metal staff that's been all banged up out of shape. So I'm just going to put a few, like I say, a few indicative strokes to suggest wood grain. Don't know what you call that bit. What do you call that bit on the wood? Anybody? Anybody in the chat now? The little, I don't know, little nodules where you'd have a branch coming out of or whatever. Little branch node or something. Yeah, Ty. So this is back when I had Dio doing artwork. So a while back, you'll remember probably, I was working on the Adventurers Guild as a tabletop roleplay game. So I'd got all these plans for it, and I'd written a rule book. I'd written all the background story. To be fair, it's almost ready to go. It just needs play testing and some more kind of refining and additional pairs of eyes looking over it. And my plan was I was going to do the models through the Patreon, just release it as like a print and play. And it just never happened. It was one of those things where there's just like, you know what I'm like. There's so many kind of demands on my time that it just never really came to fruit. So I've got all these designs that Dio did for me, which are all amazing. And let's just polish that again. They're all amazing drawings, all amazing illustrations, and I gave him the character brief for each one, gave him the story, and he kind of reinterpreted what I'd given him into his own, his own style, and I absolutely love it. But they've been sitting there in my hard drive for ages, just kind of gathering a little bit of digital dust. I thought it was time to do something with them. So I thought, well, while I'm wanting to get back into streaming, or get back into it, start doing streaming properly, because I've done a few in the past, but never proper ones. I thought I'll use Dio's artwork that he did and sculpt the models from that. So this is like, this will be the third stream on Alenor, and then there's about half a dozen extra characters on top of that. I think might be 8 in total, is it? Or so obviously having all of those models, if it takes me three streams to do a single model, this is when my brain fails me on simple arithmetic, but that's what's that, 3 for 1 model, 24 streams worth of stuff if I've got, so it's it often, as I'm sure you're aware, I wing it with my designs, so I concept in 3D on the fly, and I will do some of that as well, because that's probably an interesting insight for a lot of people, because you end up sculpting stuff sometimes, getting halfway through a sculpt and then scrapping most of it, or making drastic changes, and your design decisions happen on the fly. So it's a totally different process to what I'm doing now, actually, because what I'm doing now is quite formulaic. I'm making decisions on the go, but the design is kind of laid out for me, and I have tweaked it a few times just to make it a little bit more sculptable, to make it a little bit more viable. But for the most part, the design is the design. That process has already been done. So yeah, this is just going to go into the Patreon release for this month, assuming it's finished today. So yeah, she'll just be added in as like a bonus model. So I've got the devils that I've been working on this month, the spine devils. I did one spine devil on a previous release, because he was part of the crew for Amric van Vamper. So I needed a spine devil for that. That was in my low lantern, my low light tavern, I call it. But yeah, the low lantern set from the Descent into Avernus campaign. So got a couple of Kenku bartenders. You got the bar owner, who's like a pirate mage with a crab familiar sat on his shoulder. We've got a couple of Kenku bartenders, we've got the low bouncers, and then you've got Amric and his bodyguards, and one of the bodyguards is a spine devil. But I had a few problems with the spine devil, trying to get him to remove some supports, because I've made him a bit too spiny. And now I need, for the Descent into Avernus campaign, I need about half a dozen of the little turds. So I thought better to. I was going to take my groups off now because I'm going to join it back together. There we go. It's one piece again now. There we go. So now we've got a wooden staff. I'm going to put some banding around the top there. Let's just let's turn it a bit further down, I think. I'm going to do a mesh extract. A bit too thick. Let's just reduce the thickness down to 0.98. Try 684. There we go. That's too thin. Actually, that's fine. I'll accept that. Delete the internal geometry by isolating it. Then delete hidden and close holes. And now I want that to be thicker, so I'm just going to inflate the whole thing. and then with Dynamesh resolution low, I'm going to put polish on and Dynamesh it, and then just go over it with the smooth tool. Before we catch, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy your lunch. You take it easy, man. Okay, so we've got smoothed out the wrap for the hands, for the handle. I'm going to carve in, so bump up the intensity, turn down the draw size. Don't want any symmetry on for this, so I'm going to start at the top. I'm just going to bring it down. Take it round. We're going to go round and round and round the model. Trying to keep the distance here fairly standard, so it's like even. But I think I'm going to come straight across now. Bring it into there. And then we'll turn it round this way and we'll go back the other way. I could spend lots and lots and lots of time on this. However, it's worth noting out that the hand will be grabbing this, so the amount of this you're going to see on the final model is minimal. I will add this stuff to the component library as well, so if anybody's a follower on Patreon, all Patreon subscribers get access to my component library, so whenever I make new assets like this from scratch, they get added in. So if you're doing any like conversion work and you think, oh, that's a cool staff, I want to, I want that on my mage model, then yeah, you've got access to the staff. Elston, good to have you on board, mate. Thanks for tuning in, dude. So yeah, I'm Elston again. I've talked about everybody I know on the stream so far, but Elston is a friend of mine. He runs Elstonation, a YouTube channel, kind of hobby blog. The man is a maniac painter, so I've seen him do some ridiculous challenges. I think last year's challenge, was it last year's challenge, Elston? Like, don't buy any models. Spent the whole year trying to paint his back catalogue without buying any of these. It might be the year before actually. I'm losing track of the whole lockdown thing now. I think buy no models. I think we cheated a little bit, didn't we? Gave you some 3D printed stuff that wasn't technically bought, but 1,267 models. I don't know anybody. I don't think I've ever painted that many in my entire life, mate. So Max, another one. Max is he's just joined in. Thanks for the sub, mate. Max is a friend of mine. He lives in Germany. We're working together on a game called Crystal Collapse, which I spoke a bit about on the last stream. He's a lovely chap. He's a big Final Fantasy fan, just like I am. So we're taking a leaf out of the Final Fantasy book. Heavy dose of inspiration from one of our favourite games. And Max has come up with an absolutely spectacular rule set. We've got some beautiful artwork for it, which, if Max is okay with it, actually I might do some of the Crystal Collapse sculpts on a subsequent stream. I'm going absent-mindedly chatting here now. I'm talking about my mates who've tuned in and signed up, and I'm putting too much detail onto the handle here now. This is like unnecessary because you can't see it. Yeah, Elston as well. You'll find as a regular feature at the ChillCon events. So do that. He's always bobbing around there. I think were you doing Hobby Clinic this year? Was it Elston or? Yeah, he's a very good YouTuber, very good hobbyist, and definitely somebody I go to for for advice on streaming and stuff when I need to. In fact, it's thanks to Elston's advice you've got me on here, Switch, doing what I'm doing. Morning, Bunker. Thanks for tuning in, dude. So yeah, so it's all friends here. But yeah, so say Crystal Collapse. We'll be looking at getting that done over the next don't know, so many months. I think that I'll schedule a game session with you this week, Max. If you, we'll have a chat after the stream's done, and I'll book in a gaming night with you. So Bazooka's joined as well. Thanks for joining in, Bazooka. Yeah, check out Elston online. Bunker's got a channel as well. Tuned in and watched one of his streams the other night. Guys, if you want to throw you know what? Everybody who's got a Twitch channel, chuck the link in the stream and give people a chance to have a little gander. So yeah, so right, there we go. That's too much detail on that wrap. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to just dynamesh it again with the polish on. That'll just tone it down a bit. And then I just want to sculpt the top here. Oops. Let's just auto group. I just want to sculpt the top down here a little bit so it looks like it's folded under rather than just finishes flat. Ah, Loken, that is where you're wrong, mate. There is such a thing as too much detail. So, what I have found over many years of sculpting, you can put so much detail on a miniature that you can't actually paint it. And there's a lot of models these days, you see them and the details are so superficial and minute. They're done for rendering. They look nice in a render. They're not necessarily considering the painter in this. So yeah, Games Workshop models are simple, aren't they? They're actually quite simple when you look at them. There's a lot of stuff going on them, but they've got big flat surfaces. They've got clean areas. So the way I try and design models when I'm trying to do it is I always think about like a 70-30 ratio of resting areas to detail. So you want enough area on the model that you can apply some paint. So if I go back to Alenor as an example here. So here's the model we're working on. So she's got these larger areas like the cloth, we've got the rose, we've got the cape. And the detail on it is simple. It's straightforward, it's clean. They're just little lines to give you a little bit of somewhere to pick up a dry brush or an ink, or to do a bit of pin lining or whatever. The detail areas in the model, we've got like the fur, we've got the face and the hair, they don't make up the majority of the model. So if I go too heavy, yeah, see you can print models now. If you've got like if you've got the Anycubic D2, the DLP one, which is like super crisp, you can print the very fine details. But the point of a model is not just to be printed, is it? The point of the model is to be printed, then painted and gamed with. And what I'm making here are game models, like models to be gamed with. So these models should end up on a tabletop being painted by somebody and then played with. So you need to make sure that there's enough bulk in the model that it's not so frail that it's just going to snap to pieces every time it's handled. So you don't want like these fine wispy bits. And even Games Workshop are guilty of this lately. They've got some kits that are just, they're so finicky and delicate. It's just crazy. I think there was, I want to say it was like an Undead set, or it might have been one of the Sea Elves that they did. And when I saw it, I couldn't even believe that they'd sanctioned it. It was like it was so thin and fiddly. But you need to take into consideration the abilities of painters. So you've got painters who are quite they're quite basic in terms of their skill sets, but they want to get something on the table. So you're going to be doing like your tabletop gaming, tabletop standard like painting. So contrast paints, washes, dry brushes, those kind of things. And then you've got painters who are more into like, you know, the display kind of things, like your Golden Demon and your competition kind of painters. And those guys will want to be able to do a little bit of freehand and whatnot. And you get some of these models that you see that have got so much densely packed detail. Just because you can put all of that detail onto a model doesn't mean you should. There comes a point when you need to rein it back and kind of go, right, I can do this, but what should I do? When do I stop? And that's the real skill of sculpting models. So if I was doing this model as a 120mm miniature, I would be putting more detail into it because I know you can get away with it. It can carry it because of the larger size. But I'm still, I paint the models myself, so you know all of my miniatures you see painted on like my website and on my Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I don't use Twitter, so you know the stuff that you see of mine that's painted is painted by me. I've done it myself. I've been painting model for 33 years now, so I'm very conscious and very aware of the end product and what its purpose is, and I think that's missing in probably 90% of sculptors out there at the moment. There's a huge portion of the sculptors who do STL files are not themselves hobbyists, so they're not painting the models at the end, and they're not doing the gaming side of things. So those kind of considerations will be lost on them. They're not trying to get a brush into all those little nooks and crannies and trying to think about painting techniques you could use to apply things, you know. So we're in a weird situation where we've got a market of customers that have come into the hobby without ever having potentially picked up or bought or played or painted a model prior to owning a 3D printer. So they go and get a 3D printer and they're looking online and they want to see all these like sexy renders and, you know, really nice, and it's that's selling it to them. But the end product, the end kind of end game of what they're trying to achieve is actually kind of alien to their own, you know, their own experience and their own process. And it's through no fault of their own, but they really do need to, you know, more sculptors need to be picking up paintbrushes and trying to paint the models. Morning, Max. Good to get you on, dude. Yeah, I was saying earlier, with Max, if you don't mind us doing it, I'm happy to use the streams here to sculpt some models for Crystal Collapse as well. So we can get some of the lovely artwork that your guys have come up with. We'll get the art shown on stream. Draw a little bit of a following up. We'll have to make the Facebook page for the game first, so we can kind of send people there and kind of get people to sign up and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's the game's amazing. The game is really good. We've had a few games with Max now. We've made a few tweaks and a few suggestions, and we've got some really nice like mechanics and features in there. But in terms of actual physical gameplay, I'm fairly confident that I'll be able to teach it to my 7-year-old son, and that he will be able to kind of pick it up and play it without me having to hold his hand all the time and guide him. So it's got that right level of simplicity with the rules, but then a huge chunk of strategy thrown on top. So, you know, my son will be able to play it, but whether he'll be able to beat me is going to be a different matter, because he won't be necessarily looking at it through the same kind of strategy that I would apply. So saying that, he's pretty awesome when it comes to games and kind of like, you know, thinking round things. So there's a very good chance he will kick my ass. We'll try it out soon. Okay, right, so I'm going to bring the staff in from the other scene. So here's my staff. I'm going to add the wispy bits and the flowy bits once the staff is on the model. I'm just going to merge the two parts together, so I can grab both. Copy that into the other scene and paste. Right, it's smack in the middle, so I'm just going to go to unmask center. I'm going to locate it, bring it out. Bring it out, rotate it around a little bit, and then scale up. Okay, so that is the correct angle. Let's bring it down. Cheers, Max. Yeah, it's gonna be a great one. So Max has just, I did mention on my first stream actually. Max was just partly responsible at least for the Nanolith game that was on Kickstarter recently. So Nanolith is like a cyberpunk, futuristic narrative game. Beautiful aesthetics, really good kind of like gameplay, rave reviews, and very successful on Kickstarter actually. It's the first Kickstarter they've done, and it topped 200k I think. There's a few nice models in there as well. The character models they have done to help with a little bit with some adjustments and some renders and stuff. But it is absolutely brilliant. So check it out. I don't know if they're opening up a late pledge, but if you missed the original one, if you're loving the alright, so no worries, mate. You get cracking and get yourself to sleep. I'll catch up with you later, mate. So yeah, if you missed Nanolith on Kickstarter, I don't know if they're going to be doing like a pledge manager so you can get a late pledge in. But if they do, I'd definitely encourage you to go and have a little look, especially if you like things like Cyberpunk and Borderlands and you know, like those kinds of like sci-fi games, Infinity as well. If you like those kind of games, then definitely check out Nanolith. Right, so staff is in place. I'm going to do a ponytail now. So I'm going to drop a sphere in, just so I can say, hey look everybody, I made this from a sphere. Shut down. Okay, so I'm going to shrink it down to roughly the size I want for the base of the ponytail, which is going to come out here, right in the middle, about that big. And then I'm going to use the snake hook brush with the sculptress mode on. I'm just going to drag this down, drag it out. So you can use, there is a curves feature in Zbrush. No worries, Loken. Tune in later, mate, if you need it. It'll still be on the on Twitch and on YouTube later, and probably on Facebook still as well, I think. But enjoy your day, dude. So I'm going to bring it round. It's going to follow the curve of the arm. We're going to follow we've got the wind billowing going on here, which has obviously got a little bit of a twist going on. So a little bit of a dynamic pose. So I'm going to take this ponytail. I'm going to thicken it up by the way. It's not going to stay like super thin like that because that would be not viable. And obviously you can see all the tessellation in here at the moment because I'm using sculptress mode. So quite a large brush in sculptress mode is going to do that to you. If I shrink that down, by the way, and I smooth over it again, it's going to take out that. It's going to allow it to smooth out. But I don't even need to worry about that right at the moment. So I'm going to dynamesh it before I do any texturing. I'm going to turn it into a braid then. So I'm fairly happy with the location. I'm going to dynamesh it quickly because I want to turn off sculptress mode with the inflate because it works bizarre, it works weird. I'm just going to inflate this ponytail. So some heft to it. I want to make sure it tapers, so I want the top to be thicker, and then it's going to thin out towards the end. But again, the thin bit still needs to be thick enough that it's not going to snap off or pull apart when you start doing supports. If you do really thin bits on a model, when you connect a support to it, they can break off. So I did some skeleton rats, which were included in the Cult of Morkel set, and when I did those skeletal rats, they were super thin, and I did actually manage to get a few bases of them printed off, so they worked alright. Subsequently I've struggled a little bit and I end up breaking them, and the reason being is just because the bones on these rats aren't much thicker than some of the supports that are on them. So when you try and separate them out, they're just quite bendy and they just pull apart and break up. So I'm going to have to revisit my rats at some point and kind of add a bit of chunk to them. Okay, so we're going to dynamesh that again. Just going to up that resolution this time. Put the polish on. Going to go over to smooth it all, just to remove some of the facets. I haven't got dynamic tessellation on this time, so this is still maintaining a square grid, a square mesh. I think I'm going to bring this ponytail down to touch the shoulder. It's not in the image, but that extra point of contact here will be beneficial. There, that's fine. Okay, so what I need to do now, I'm going to use my Orb Cracks brush. I'm going to draw a line down the middle. This line is not going to end up there at the end. This is just for my reference. This is the line I'm going to follow. So this will be the top of the braid, the centre. It's my centre line. I'm going to come down to about there. There'll be a clasp here, like the cuff thing. Right, so I always get this wrong. How do we do it again? Straight down, down, down. So basically I'm going to cross that centre line with everything. So bringing one from the one edge and then from the other edge, I'm going to cross at that centre point. And again, I'm trying to maintain the thickness of the braids. They can get smaller as you go down. So obviously as the hair strands thin out and become smaller, the thickness is going to change. Start thinning this out now. You can get braid brushes from Zbrush, and you just drag out a line and then it will go bang, there's a braid for you, but I never like the way they look. They always look really kind of angular and artificial. You never get a kind of a natural braid look to it. Never looks like hair. And I've not found a decent one yet. I'd use them occasionally if I'm doing lots and lots of braids, but then I always end up doing this pass over it anyway, so it's almost pointless. I might as well just do what I've done here. I don't know about you guys as well, but it's getting really autumnal here. It's we're starting to feel this. And again, I don't know if it's the same or different parts around the world, but we get like winter for autumn for us. It's always like my birthday's in November. It always reminds me of like bonfire night. So what's that, 5th of November in the UK? So we have you get that kind of like damp, kind of crisp air. You start wrapping up in your scarves and hats and stuff. Kind of on the brink of that at the moment, and it's I'm feeling it down in my office now as well. Like the cold is kicking in. Like this place is well insulated. When I built it, I put like loads of like thick insulation in the roof. There's a whole slab of insulation under the floor, and it does help to kind of keep it to keep the heat in. But you do have to warm it a little bit to start with. I've got the radiator on behind me at the moment because it was 16 degrees when I came down here. Well, say the radiator's on. The radiator was on early because it was 16 degrees when I got in the office. But if I'm printing overnight, I have to use a radiator to kind of maintain the print quality. Isn't it just bunker? I think if anybody who's like doing like hobbying in garages and stuff at the moment, or sheds and external outbuildings like I do, you're gonna start feeling the pinch Oops. Balls that one up. There we go. So yeah, I think I'm going to be doing a lot more of my evening works. Unless I'm printing loads, a lot of my evening works now are going to end up going into the house. So I've seen a bit of work last night. Well, I was doing work last night down in the office. The night before I was in the house using my tablet. Got a Wacom Cintiq Companion 2. Which I've had for donkey's years. It's an old one now, but it's quite good for being a portable, sculpting device I can use. So I'm sitting on the sofa watching a bit of telly with the wife. Yeah, I bought one of those oil-filled jobbies, an oil-filled radiator, and it's quite good because obviously it gets up to heat, but it heats the oil up, and then you end up with like residual heat in the office for a good while afterwards. And leaving it on like even just a minimum setting once it's got up to temperature tends to kind of keep it ticking over. So yeah, I mean, for 3D printing you need the office temperature to be, or I need the office temperature in here to be at least 21 degrees, ideally around about 23. So you do have to maintain that temperature as well, because if you suddenly like have a dip in the temperature, you'll come down in the morning, check on your prints, and you're going to have a fail. As the resin becomes more viscous, it needs more curing. So you find like it's what I was saying about exposure settings earlier on not being quite a case of, they're not as simple as how long your light's on for. The more viscous resin, the colder resin, needs more exposure time to kind of cure than the thinner stuff does. So even using the same resin, you can have different results. And if that changes halfway through a print, and you set the print up to run at a 2.6 second exposure, and then the ambient temperature dips, and you end up with more viscous resin, colder temperatures, and all that kind of job, you're going to end up with underexposed prints which will fail and like pull off the supports, which I have had happen a few times. So you just need to be careful, especially in countries like the UK where it's going to get colder, or significantly colder at night. That's what you've got to keep an eye out for. It applies during the daytime as well. Still, obviously, if you heat your room and then the kids leave the door open or something like that, I'm constantly shouting at them because they come in here and they go and sit on my sofa up in the corner. And I've got a beanbag over here as well. They'll come in and they'll sit down. They'll bring their like crisps and sweets and drinks and stuff, and they'll sit down. They'll put the telly on. They'll hijack. Thanks for the follow, Ro. Yeah, they'll come and hijack my office, and then they'll leave the door open, and I'm like, I'm printing in here, get out, close the door. But it's all sent to try us. Alright, so I forgot to talk through this. After I've just marked out all of the braid here, what I've done is I've got my my clay build-up brush, and I'm just going back over the strands in the direction that the strands are going. I'm starting at the middle with a light pressure, and then applying more pressure as I go out, and it's going to create a taper. It's going to create like a dip in the middle, and then a kind of a bulge to the strands of the braid. And then what that will do is when we come to paint it, as I was saying earlier, the paints will find, or your ink washes will find the crevices between those strands, and your dry brushing is going to pick up the higher parts. Now at this end here, I'm just going to just carve a few crude strands in, just for indication at this point. where can I see the bottom of the braid? Almost everywhere. Fantastic. So I need to tidy up the bottom now. So same as I did before, I'm going to bring the braid sections in. I don't need to do quite so much sculpting on this bottom side though. Hey Euro, thanks for joining in. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for the sub or the follow. Whatever the terminology is on Twitch. I'm still got to get my head around this whole streaming thing. So I can still see that bit. I can still see that bit. I'm just gonna have to do the whole thing, aren't I? Balls. Dynamesh again, and the polish on, push, instant smoothing. There we go. So with this now, I'm going to take the All Cracks brush, bump up my intensity and turn down my size. Yeah, thanks, Ro. I say it's all stylized. As I was saying earlier, if you catch the beginning of the stream earlier on, whenever I'm sculpting anything, I'm sculpting to basically consider the painter and the gamers at the end. So everything in here is done with the end user in mind. So I'm not going to be putting unnecessary cluttered details, too much texture or anything like that, unless I absolutely need to. So the hair on these, even here now, it's just strands, and I don't want to put them all in because it's going to clutter up the look. So I'm just putting enough to give it the indication that we're looking at hair. Because obviously it's going to be nice smooth hair because she's an elf. So I don't want too much. Yeah, everything's Zbrush, mate. I'm in Zbrush now. The whole thing is done in here. So I started with the base mesh, which I think it was one I bought from Zbrush, I think, but then I've gone on and customised it to kind of get the proportions that I want for the models. Because you'll see a lot of people online when they go, you'll see the sculpting videos and they're like, started with a sphere and I ended up with this, and that's fantastic to do that. But equally, when you're in a production workflow and you're trying to like turn around, like I do, you know, if you have a look at my Patreon and you have a look at my what do you call it, like Instagram and Facebook and everything else, all of the models you'll see on there, unless I've specifically stated it. I think I had one set of 3 models that was made by another guy, and I still gave them a sculpting pass before they went released. So everything I do, everything I release is all my own work. So if I'm trying to do all of them models in a month, the easiest way for me to turn around that quick is to use the base meshes. So that gives you like a good frame to start from, and then the one thing I'll say is if you can't sculpt, if you can't already sculpt it, using a ready-made base mesh is not going to help you. You need to learn the fundamentals before you start using crutches and cheating. You can, you know, for me it's a tool that speeds up my workflow, but for somebody who's not done anatomy before, the minute you go off piece with the base mesh, and you change it. Thanks for the follow, Wanky. Is that a one? One is it? One. So yeah, so once you change the once you change the base mesh and you start dealing with anatomy and you start sculpting things in, or you need to change proportions of things, if you're not familiar with anatomy, it's very easy to get all of that stuff wrong, and then it shows through in the end model. And you see a lot of it online. There's so many people out there making models now, and the problem is there's no kind of like common standard across the board, and there's not art directors out there kind of like, you know, signing things off and kind of giving instruction and direction. It's just a lot of independent artists just cranking stuff out that they think is good, you know, that appeals to them, and that's absolutely fine. But again, if you haven't got that level of training or that level of experience, it's easy to kind of have that come through in your work. Right, so just putting a few strands in. This just helps the ink washers to pick it up, and it will just look a little bit more like hair than just a mechanical braid. Or you gotta make sure you go in the direction of the hair strands as well. Just smooth that out a touch more again. In fact, I'm going to crank the Dynamesh resolution up for this one. Smooth it. It's better. Right, now I'm going to do the end strands. So I'm just going to use the inverted version. I've got Lindsay on the stream as well. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so I'm just going to use the inverted tool here. A few indicative strands, just picking through, a couple in between. We're going to carve in as well, not just raise out. Thanks, Lindsay. Appreciate it. Okay, so now I need to make that end bit look like something. So I'm just going to use the snake hook brush with the. In fact, I'm going to leave sculpture mode off for this because I just want to pull it a bit. No worries, Ro. Yeah, get your dinner in, mate. Get your dinner in. Just going to pull a few of these little strands out, just to break up the clumpiness of the end. Now they are going to be small and wispy, but they're superficial small details at the in a larger mass. So I put a bit of smoothing on the end of that to blend the strands together. Okay, and I'm happy with that. Although actually I can't see it like you can in the drawing. So I'm just going to use my move tool to just bring the whole thing up a bit. But I still want to make sure that that bit stays connected to the fur. Right, so I'm just going to pull this in. So I'm using the move tool now to nudge. So I can create a bit of thickness, I can create a bit of movement. But if I do it too uniformly or too solid, as one big strong movement, then it's going to end up like really deforming it, but also breaking the flow. Look at the model from the front now. Right, you can see a ponytail, you can see the braids coming through, so we're good. Okay, so a bit more thickness here. So I'm using the Alt key with the move tool. and that literally just drags the surface on a tangent, so it brings it out in a. So you've got the surface there like that. It's going to go straight up. So no matter which direction I approach it from, it's going to pull straight away from the model. If the model's that way around, you pull it, it's going to go that way. So the alt with move is very useful. This is something here I'm just going to be a little bit careful of. So I'm just going to bring this part of the hair back in. I might as well try and contact the back of the ear there. So I'm going to bring that through, and I'll probably fill that gap behind the ear before the model's finished. Just because it's one of those little piddly gaps that you just don't want to have to try and paint through. Okay, so last thing we're going to do is, last thing, loads to do still. The belt icon. I'm just going to zoom in on my source art, which is on my other screen here. I've got a few bits around the belt to get done, so I'll bring this down so you can see what I'm looking at. So we've got the little strap to come down here with what I believe to be a pouch or something on here. We've got the strap here, we've got this nice little gold detail with the little ribbon on it, so I'll add that on. We've got this belt buckle, which will be a nice, it's quite a detailed shape, but it's quite simple to do. So thanks for the follow, Lindsay. So I'm going to use that. I might use like a shadow mesh for that, I think. Shadow box. Oh, do you know what? I might as well show you. Here we go. As I've let the cat out of the bag now. So these are the other characters that Dio did for me. So we start with Alenor. These are the rest of the ones I'm going to be working through. So after she's finished, I'm going to throw these up and put a poll up to say, you know, where do you want to, which one do you want me to do next? So we've got Alenor, we've got Brother Halden, who's a human cleric. We've got Eisen, Dragonkin Hunter, with a little pseudo dragon called Gar. So Eisen is a blind Dragonkin. He was fighting a Gorgon when he was young and cocky. Goes on a hunt for this Gorgon and accidentally eyeballs it and starts getting turned to stone. So his eyes turn to stone first, and then the rest of his body starts going, and then this little pseudo dragon finds him in the cave. He ends up stumbling into his nest, and they kind of end up with a psychic bond. The little dragon helps to heal him, but can't actually fix his eyes. So basically they end up as a pair. So they've got like a psychic link between the two. So the little dragon flies around and he's like Eisen's eyes, essentially. Cheers, Max. And you, Lindsay, thank you. So that's one of the characters. We've got Garland. He's another Dragonkin warrior monk. So he's just a big, burly, beefy one. So we've got the skinny hunter, and then we've got the big, chunky warrior monk. We've got Glirica, who's a little gnome rogue. I like her, she's like a cool little character. So we'll vote for the dragon monk there from Lindsay. We've got Growlock, who's an orc barbarian chieftain. So these are all members of the Adventurers Guild. So for whatever reason they've ended up in the Kingdom of Telarius at the Adventurers Guild, and these are the player characters I'd intended to use in the game. So we've got the nice barbarian chieftain to do. We've got Stefania, a demonkin spearmaster, so she's like the equivalent of a tiefling, if you like. Sigmund, human fighter, with his warhound called Titan. And that's them. That's the lot of them then. So we're going to choose between these characters then to see which one gets done next. But yeah, so for now we're dealing with Alenor. We've got Griblet up next. We'll have to add him on to the mix as well. Thanks, Lindsay. So yeah, all of these drawings, they were done by Dio Mahisa. If you check him out on Instagram, Facebook, I think he uses I am Dio as a handle on a lot of things. So Dio, D-I-O. But yeah, fantastic artist, love him. I've worked with him on a few projects in the past. So, right, so let's get her back up. We're going to do this belt now, I think. Belt buckle. Actually, no, let's do hands. Alright, hands. They're a pain in the bum to do. I have got a load of brushes I've purchased from various different places. So cubebrush.co would be one I would use a lot. So we're going to go into anatomy. We've got IMM hand blockouts. This is one that I use a lot, just because they've got you can make her the evil character then, Max. Put her in as the big bad guy. Or maybe we just change the name. Yeah, they're not fun to sculpt either, to be fair. They can take a lot of time, and it's good to... There's a lot of... One of the good things with Zbrush is that you can just take these elements that you've created in various, at various points in the past on different models, save them down, and then just copy them and paste them straight into another scene. Now, the one problem you have with these kind of meshes is like these hands are not going to be designed for miniatures. They're going to be designed for just models and CG art kind of things. So once I've posed the hand up, I'm going to have to kind of run an inflate brush over it to just fatten up the fingers a little bit, just so they're a bit more pronounced on the model. That makes a lot of sense. You can smooth them out. I mean, in Zbrush here now, when you saw me putting the smooth pass on the hair, you can do that on anything. And what I do tend to do is I'll get the hands, I'll pose it how I want it, and then once it's fully posed up, I do merge everything together and then run that smoothing pass over them. And again, for a miniature, for the models I'm looking at, the hands are probably pretty much what you would use for like an anime drawing. But Zbrush is brilliant for kind of like doing like base sculpts. I've taken these sculpts I've done before, put them into Photoshop and done like draw overs and paint overs. So you can definitely use them for that, and obviously you stage all the lighting up and everything. Definitely cheats. Right, so I'm going to take the human female hand, this one here, and I'm going to put it on the end of the arm here. Now that is obviously the wrong hand, so I'm going to mirror that. No, it's not the wrong hand, it's on the wrong side. Okay, so I'm going to take that hand over here, rotate it around, position it so it's where I want it. So, hand is roughly where I need it to be. You'll see at the moment though, it's all one colour. If I click auto groups now, it's going to break it down into lots and lots of different colours. And every one of these colours is a separate mesh. So you see all the little overlaps there? So I'll turn that off because it's horrible to look at. And what I can do now is I can isolate a fingertip or whatever else by control shift and click to turn it on and off. Mask everything by right click on the screen, control and then click on the screen, and then when I bring the mask back, when I bring the object back by tapping on screen again, those bits are unmasked, and when I come to do my rotates now, so I've just positioned the screen how I want it. I'm going to use the big round wheel, and I can just position the fingers now, just like that. So I need to obviously have the mesh in place there so I can wrap the fingers around the hand, but then what I'll do at the end is if I have to do it now actually, I'll bump up the inflate so that the fingers will be a bit fatter,
So not very feminine, but oh, it's got the hair involved in that. Not hugely feminine because we're going for like big fat hands, but again, it's for miniatures. They need to be chunky enough that I can do what I need to do, and that they'll still show up on a model. If they're too thin and too like fine, when it's wrapped around a staff or a sword handle or something like that, you aren't going to necessarily see the finger definition. So we've got to try and create that artificially. It's something we've got to kind of hack, if you like. I'm going to click on my ponytail. I'm just going to hide that, split it off. So we've got a separate tool there for the ponytail. I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to mirror and weld that, and that will create a duplicate of that on the other side. Good stuff, Ro. Okay, so I'm going to position the other hand now as well, and I'm going to redo the auto groups because at the moment they're sharing auto groups between the two sides of the model. So if I try and isolate the fingertip on one model and start moving it, it's going to start moving the fingertip on the other side of the model, and it's going to give me completely random effects or random positioning on the other side, because it's going to be moving with the centre of the like the movement axis, wherever the centre of this is, wherever this little square is, that'll be the centre of the movement. So anything that's over this side is going to end up, if I move something a tiny bit over here, the things over this side are going to be moving a massive amount, and we don't want that. So I'll re-auto group in a second. I'm just going to position this hand first. So I want this hand upright like this, just like that. And I just need to just nudge the wrists in a little bit to make them fit. Because obviously I've just inflated everything up. It's all quite chunky now. Okay, so I'm going to redo my auto groups, and that will give every one of these components a separate group, so they can all be isolated without having to worry about the other parts. So you can see I can isolate everything on this hand now, and this hand is still completely present. So I'm just going to mask that side. I just want to nudge that hand up a little bit, so I don't want all the wrists sticking out past that. Right, there we go. So I'll start with this hand because this is the crucial one, the pose. I'm going to isolate all the digits. So turn the lock back on. I'll remove that. I'm just going to isolate that again by clicking it and masking it. Okay. Isolate that bit of the finger, thumb. Okay. So there we go. The thumb is on. Do you know what? I think I've got that wrong, haven't I? Yep. Now the thumbnail's not going to be visible, that's all going to blend in by the end. This finger out. Again, I'm just positioning the again we call it the gizmo widget. The gizmo. Going to position that so it's pretty much on top of the knuckle, so wherever the movement would naturally happen. I'm going to rotate it in. Isolate the next digit, it's not a digit, is it? What do you call it? Next joint. unlock the tool, lock it again, back around, and lather, rinse, repeat. So I wanted to bring the font out past the fingertip. There. Next finger. Now sometimes what I do is I sculpt these hands and then I'll save the hand down. But obviously it only works if you're using like the same pose. Sometimes if you try and do like this where you just got a generic hand grip and you want to try and put it onto a staff, if the fingers don't fit, if the staff's too fat for it, whatever else, it doesn't quite look right. So it's worth occasionally doing it properly. Even if you have got those kind of tools at your disposal. I mean, when it comes to the knife on a belt, I'm probably going to use one that I've made earlier, just because it's a small and insignificant detail, and it's not actually covered in the illustration, so there's no kind of source material to go by. So I'll use a knife I've made on another sculpt, drop it into the scene, and then I'll just customise it for this model, and that will just mean that it's, again, a little bit less work to have to try and get done, because you've got to try and create some efficiencies somewhere, or you'll never get anything finished. Oh, that one hasn't worked. Too far down, away from the joint. Can leave the tip of that finger up, and then this one. So there we go, one hand done. Oh, not quite done. So I'm going to use my Move Topo tool to clean up that little bit there. So Move Topology tool, Move Topological, that one will basically just take any one of these poly groups and allow you to move it and manipulate it without affecting any of the others. So I'm just going to use that to tidy up some of these connections and joints. Well, I'll smooth this all off anyway in a minute with a Dynamesh. This will all be taken care of, so it's not a huge problem. Okay, so not happy with that. Where's he gone? Okay, this one over here is fairly straightforward. Go to unmask center, move it to there, bring that finger up to there, and then okay, I'm very aware I've just done something completely different to the way I've done it previously, the way I masked it. Sometimes I do things in the wrong order, and then rather than go back and do it right, I'll just do something different instead. So there's not one right way of doing things, just whatever works for you at the time. And again, you don't want to be wasting time by having to go back and correct things if you don't have to. So normally what I was doing, I was masking off the things like this, mask everything and then do that, return it, so the bit that's unmasked now is all I'm affecting with the movement tools. And then what I did, if you missed it on the previous one, it's got a bit of tidying up to do on that one, but a weird finger joint. What I did on the previous one, I masked off these bits and I left that bit, so I just used the masking tool to cover it and then return it, and it does the same thing, but I suppose in a little bit of more of a manual way. I need that to be repositioned, that's not right. Right, there we go.
So I've got a hand in a kind of, what do you call it? That kind of position. Something about that feels wrong. I need that. Ah, I know. I'm going to angle it down a bit more. And all I need to do is just where the wrist's just gone in a bit wonky, I'll just mash it in and hide it. And I need to move that up again. Right, now when you're doing these things, there's certain areas where you need to have a good connection. So the wrist is one. So you want to make sure you've got a good. You don't have a little spindly connection at the wrist. Hey Pino, good to see you on stream, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Another STL creator had just joined the stream. Pino, I apologise, mate. I can't remember the name of your company, but if you want to link it in the chat, absolutely happy for you to do it. he does some great work. Really cracking scenery type pieces. Give them on a follow. Right. So hands are done. I'm going to merge them together now. I've got a dynamesh with a polish on. Auto group everything. And then, did I dynamesh? Did that work? Let's try it with low resolution. I'll just go in with the brush and smooth it all. Oh, actually, let's undo a few of them. I need to bring that finger back in line. Mistake. Got a bit of a crossover going on there as well, which isn't great, so let's just straighten that out. There we go. Right, now I'm happy. I'm going to crank the dynamesh resolution down. What I can do actually is I can divide this first. If I just do a divide on it, it's just going to smooth out the surface. And then when I do my dynamesh together, excuse me, everything's a little bit neater now. Now these little tiny ridges you're probably not going to notice, but I am just going to run a smooth over them, just to kind of neaten them up. So Lindsay, this is what I was saying to you, if you create the hands, pose them all up, and then smooth them to within an inch of their life, they work quite nicely. How many hands on? Ouch. Okay, so hands are done, got a fireball in hand. Take that, make sure the fingers are visible from the outside, bring it to the shape of the hand. This will also help when you're printing it. It will help to make sure you don't have to support individually each of these, like, you know, free hanging fingers. Because unsupported fingers on a model like this, they're going to come back and break you. So I'm just going to use the snake hook tool. I'm just going to create a little bit of movement for the fire. Now fire wants to rise, so it's going to come up. Now on the image, the fire is actually going this way towards her, but that wouldn't be correct with this because of the direction of everything. We've got this like movement towards the left. So the fire is going to have to also follow suit. I'll pull up a few little strands, make sure there's a bit of directional movement in them. It's going the same way. Okay, that will do for now. I'm going to dynamesh that with a polish on. Use my orb cracks again. Good old orb cracks. Similar to how we do hair actually, but a bit more curves going on, I suppose. And again, I'm stylising the fire here. I'm not looking for it to look super realistic. Now when you're painting this, you come to paint fire, you put a white on to start with. So whatever colour you paint everything else, make sure the fire goes white first. Then you apply a very, very bright light yellow to the whole flame, and then all these deeper
recesses, they become this bright yellow colour. Then you can gradually mix your reds into the yellow to create like a kind of a yellowish orange right through to a kind of cherry red, and apply it to the outside layers of the fire. So the higher parts, these raised ridges, these are the bits that you would go. So you keep it light at the bottom as you move up, more orange, more red, and then when you get to the very, very tip, you can finish the tip with just a little speck of black, tiny little bit of black on the top, and you'll get a really lovely, realistic looking fire. The one mistake people often make when they paint fire is they invert those colours. So they'll start with red at the bottom and then blend it up to a yellow tip, and there'll always be something that looks a little bit wrong about. Now I have got just down here an example of what I'm talking about. This is my Ifrit model. So this is me painting this. I had to rush him to get him finished a little bit at the end because I wanted to get him on the table at ChillCon. But you can see with the fire, again, we've got yellow in the lowest parts on his hands and on his tail. So we've got yellow in the recesses, and it comes up to the darker reds and then up to a black tip. So if you're going to be doing it, if you're going to be painting any fire, make sure your colours are the right way round. It's completely backwards to how you would shade and paint anything else. Okay, so she's got a bit of fire in her hand now. She's got a staff in her hand there. I'm going to put a ribbon on the staff because she's got a few. I'm going to use the same ribbon cloned twice over, and then I'm going to also use the same ribbon to do the little bit that's on her belt. So a little bit less thickness than that. I want it to be about the same width as the banding on the staff. Let's bring one in. So I'm just going to cut it in so it's inset into there, so it's hidden. So if I click on my transparent tool, you can see it's inside the staff. Duplicate it. Bring it forwards, angle it a touch. It's still inside the staff, okay? And then I'm going to duplicate it one more time. Then bring it over here. Flip it sideways. I'm going to attach it here. Okay. So this one, I'm going to use the move tool on to turn on transparency off so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to turn my move tool off. I'm going to push it down to there. I'm going to give it a little bit of backwards movement so it follows the cape. I want the lines to be echoed. I'm going to bring it down so it touches the skirt. So we've got contact. So I don't want it all free flowing. And then the end here, I'm just going to bring the tip up. Okay, now it's really blocky and really angular, which is fine because we're going to come back and deal with that in a minute. So I'm going to shrink that fur down, flatten it down a bit so it doesn't protrude through. Come back to this, flatten. Bring it back. And then I'm going to do my divide. Divide it a few times. Delete the lower divisions. Don't want them. And then we've got a little. You might think, yeah, we've got a little V shape in the end. So I'm going to do this by save what I'm doing here first. Because last night I was sculpting
my devils for this month's Patreon release. And I've just done a load of work, dynameshed it, and Zbrush crashed. Right, so I'm going to group, polish, dynamesh. Done. I'm going to take that bit. I'm going to do the same again. Delete that bit. Group masked. Bring it back together. There we go. Perfect V, nice and simple. Just a few steps. The scrolls on the staff don't have that. I'm keeping the thickness again, by the way. You can see it's quite a hefty thing. It's not exactly a realistic ribbon. This is what I'm saying, for the thickness to show through on a model and actually be robust enough that it can be handled, you need the thickness. Right, I'm just going to put some movement in here. So we're going to go this way. Again, following the wind. The wind is coming this way. And use my move on a small size so I can nudge it around. And then same for the other one. So this is going to be more dramatic on this one, so I'm going to grab the end, going to move it, it's going to go right the way back, and again this will connect onto the skirt, back of the leg, etc. Right, I just want to show you how gnarly this has gone now, because I used the move tool a bit too, frivolously. So I'm just going to grab the points at the end with the move tool, I'm just going to nudge them to shape. I'm going to try and re-establish that kind of like consistent width I had. Or fairly consistent, doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to get sculpted on afterwards. There we go, so divide that a few times, stop. Right, now these are both very flat at the moment, I don't want them to just be flat, I'm going to put a bit of movement in different directions in. So I'm going to get the big move brush and I'm going to pull it backwards. And for this one, I'm going to bring it forward, so again, I want it to touch the boot, so that it's got that point of contact, creating like a kind of a frame structure kind of thing. Okay, right, now, Dynamesh. About 300 resolution, polish it. Same with that one, 300 resolution. Polish it. Oh god, dynamic tessellation, let's get that off. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is... Hey Chris! Chris has joined in. So Chris, who's just signed in, just joined. He's the man behind Cursed Empire. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but you should be. Because he's got a fantastic little roleplay setup. It's been going for, I believe, from memory, about 22 years. So it's into the 3rd edition almost. And I am doing the official miniature range for him. So you'll find there's a number of models already. And many of the models that I have done previously, Chris has licensed to actually include in the game. So you'll find like the mercenary company, my skeletons, and loads of other things like that. They're all usable in the game. So if you've got any of my models, you can pretty much get up and get on with it. The Cursed Empire tabletop roleplay game will be coming soon as well. So there'll be a tabletop version for it, like a dungeon crawl, and there is well underway with that. Lots and lots and lots and lots of dungeon maps being made up at the moment. And then he's also got his current games, which are the Heroes of Thargos. which is a card game, which is like a dueling battles between heroes. And then there's another one called War Galleys of Thargos, which if you've ever played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, when you jump in near the kind of the big Greek ships and go to battle on the seas, imagine that as like a strategy card game, and that's what he's created. They're all very good. They've gone down a treat, and he's going to be at Essen as well. So if you're in the area and you're going to be visiting Essen, keep your eyes peeled for the Cursed Empire stuff. Also, I believe Max, are you doing Essen with Nanolith, Max? Is that right? Oh, goodness wrong. So yeah, keep an eye out for the guys anyway, because they're all great. They've got brilliant products. Yeah, so Max will be at Essen with Nanolith. So if you're heading to Essen, the two stores to keep your eyes peeled for are Woodpecker Games with Nanolith, and the Cursed Empire with the Heroes of Thargos. And you'll see all the miniatures there. You'll see all the card games. Go and have a chat to the guys. They're both lovely chaps. And have a look at the products. Right, so I'm going to crank the intensity down for this because it's not going to work otherwise. I'm just going to run Orb Cracks brush with a very large size, and this is good for doing like movement in cloth, and it's very good because it comes through the other side. So when I use that tool, you can see it's created the inverse of it this side. Max, if you've got, I don't know if you've got a pledge manager for Nanolith or anything like that, where you can, if you're taking any late pledges on, I don't know if you want to share that one in the group just so people see it. I'll have it off you as well because I'll put it on my website as a hard link. Same for the Cursed Empire stuff, Chris. We'll get that one in there too. Make sure that's there's a hard link from my site to yours when it's up and running. Okay, so the staff is done, the fire's done, the hands are done. I need to do a little clip thing down there, little triangular clips. So I'll bend the cube. Just gonna dynamesh the cube. And I'm gonna put the symmetry on. I'm going to slice the corner. I'll do. Now if I do sword blades, this is also what I would do. So use symmetry, turn symmetry on, and then use the point of symmetry, that mirror line down the middle, to be the edge of the blade. So you can create all your profiling, you can do it all down the side, and use the H polish tool to basically bring the two together. The point where they polish in, you'll get this nice sharp creased ridge. Okay. I'm going to turn my intensity up on this one now, keep the brush size large. Now the reason for this is this is going to be very small. There we go. Turn my symmetry off and I'll go and position that. Where's it gone? I just want that at the top of that. Top of the ribbon. Okay, I'm just going to take that ribbon, I'm just going to use the move tool, I'm just going to push that down. So this is alt pressed again. And I was pushing it down. I just want to create that little bit of
a ridge with definition between the two. So when you're painting it, you've got a very clear break. And I'm also going to take that and I'm going to duplicate it by mirroring and welding. There we go, perfect spot. Okay. And now I need to do a strap. Now, this is my tip for doing straps. I think I might have done one here with the belt. But what I do, I'll append a cylinder, shrink my cylinder right down so it's about the right size, and then my cylinder becomes my strap. So I don't want a strap that's got a hollowing in the middle because it's not conducive for miniatures. And I can use the push and pull tools, the movement tools and things like that to kind of get, you know, shape to this. So I'm going to use that, I'm going to create a bit of height, and I'm going to take it under the fur at the back. Okay, and that's going to save me from having to do too much of the sculpting on it. I'm just going to divide that. So we're going to put this bag on here. Oh, I'm not sure about this knife now. Do I do the knife? It looks like she's got a short sword. And she's got like a little bag up there as well. Do I do it? Yeah, I might have to change the profile of the cloth there to do it, but I will put short sword in. Maybe I'll put it down the back here. Yeah, I'll put it back. I'll put it down the back at an angle. I'll follow that line. So I'm going to go cylinder, I'm going to go import, and I'm going to go to my component library. Right, so in my component library you'll find loads of bits and bobs. I'm going to go and pick up a short sword, I think. What's that? Crow short sword. I think that was from my barbarian. Yeah, that's no good. Right. Weapons. Swords and daggers. Dagger. That could do actually if I make it a bit longer. Dwarven dagger. Possibly, I feel like I've used that a few times recently though, so. Kazidea. There we go. Yeah, Elston's still on, mate. Be on till about 1 o'clock, I think. Yeah, I'm going to use that. If I shorten that down and change the hilt, I think I can make that work. So that's not ideal. It would be nice if it comes in straight, but right, the bottom I'm going to leave as is. The top I'll leave as is. I'm just going to change the panther head. And I'm just going to snip a section out of the middle, I think. So I want to keep that bit the same as is. I don't want to be changing that. So I'm just going to shrink this down to about there, I think. There. Mask that off. I'm going to come back down. I'm going to extend that back out again. Now I don't need the blade. I'm going to take that spear out. Okay, so that'll do nicely. So I was going to reprofile some of this cloth to make the sword fit in, but we'll do that, we'll put that there, and I think I will put a little sword frog. It's not literally a frog with a sword, but that would be a cool little bit of a miniature, I think. Maybe it needs to be done at some point. Oh god. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with a sword frog, it's basically like a little leather loop that will hang on a belt. It's usually braced up a little bit with a couple of straps or whatever, so it will kind of hold a position. And then the whole sword with the scabbard and everything goes inside, gets tied in, and it's how you draw your sword from your waist. It's not tucked into a belt; it's held by the frog. And I just like the fact it's called a frog as well. Because that can lead to all sorts of peculiar conversations. Okay, right, so that's in. Delete the lower on that. Now I'm going to hide this. Hide everything else for a minute. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to mask off half of this bit at the top. And I'm just going to drag it out like that. There you go, it now connects up to the belt. And all I need to do is I just need to change the angle of it. So I'm just going to bring this to the front corner. That's where I want the change to make. And there, I want it to go up. Okay. I'll polish that with a bit of Dino Ash, and I'm going to just buff out the bottom here so it smooths out that gnarly end, which isn't going to be fun for anyone. And I can slice the top off because I don't need anything beyond there. So polish with groups, dynamesh it, delete hidden. Okay. So then that goes up to the let's just push this bit off. Now these are tiny details that you're not even going to notice really. I'm going to smooth that edge off. I want it to stay fairly sharp on the edge just in case. You can pick it up with that. Right, I was going to take push the skirt down behind there. And just here at the bottom I'm just going to bring it down so that doesn't pull through. Okay. But I also don't want to create a huge void behind that skirt, behind the sword. So I want to keep it quite tight and quite close. Which I think I've done. I think we're alright. Okay, so I'll take this fur, I'm just going to bring this fur down here a little bit. Fill that gap. Okay, now we're going to put a little bag on. Also going to put a little inflated ring around there. Just polish the gnarly edges. Okay. Straighten that up a little bit. Now at this point, if this is a bit out, I can use the nudge tool to bring it down again. Just straighten it up. Just got to be careful, you don't want to be pushing too much in any direction. Just minor corrections even. Okay. I don't think I'm going to go with the bag, you know. I think if I add the bag there, I think it's going to be a bit too busy. Yeah, I'm going to leave the bag off. So let's do a belt buckle now. Let's go for a square. Right, so I'm going to take a square. I'm going to go into my geometry tab. And somewhere down here I've got an option called shadow box. So I'm going to turn shadow box on, I'm going to bump the resolution up quite a bit, and I'm going to click shadow box. Okay, now what shadow box does, it gives you this weird thing that's got 3 sides to it. I can turn my symmetry on, so it's going to work with symmetry, and it's going to create a shape based on what I draw as a mask. So I need my mask on. Right, so let's put a vertical chunk through there. Don't want the bottom done, so I'm just going to take that. Just going to take the very bottom out of there. And then I need to be drawing on the green side there. Okay, so we've got symmetry on. So I need doesn't have to be perfect, by the way, because shadow mesh is a little bit. It's good for giving you a kind of a rough base mesh if you're working in odd shapes. But it's not very good for giving you like sharp, refined details. You definitely need to do a sculpting pass on it. How's that looking? So I need to take. I'm going to use the inverse of the masking tool as well to unmask areas to give it a bit of crisper definition at times. Okay, so that will give me two shapes. I do need that bit of bottom. Turn shadow box off, and now we've got a mesh. Okay. So I've also grouped that now, that's two separate parts. Now at the top here, I'm just going to, still got the, let's get some good resolution on this. I'm going to use the all prepped brush with a high intensity to carve in my diamond shape. And then I'll turn the intensity down. I'm just going to run along the edges here, give this a raise, bit of a profile to it. And then we've got just some random colours, random patterning going on here. So up that as well. I'm going to put an extra little gem down here. A little one in there. Turn. turn off my symmetry for that a little bit. Back on again just to run the ridge around the outside of these. Okay, and the bottom bit. Oh, it's got some funky eyes there in the middle. Quite like that. Right, so let's take that belt now. We're going to bring it, save it. I'm going to bring it forwards. Lift it up. Shrink it down. Yeah, do you know, it reminded me a bit of the, you know, is it Majora's Mask, the Zelda game? It reminded me of that a little bit. Okay, so I need to do something about this because it's too flat. So I'm going to switch it into deformer mode, which is the widget mode. I'm going to highlight, I'm going to auto mask the outside, or mask off the outside, so I only move in the middle. And then I want to just bring that forwards. That's going to give me a nice curvature to the belt. So, and I'll turn my deformer off, put my gizmo back on, and I can just slide it back into place until it fits. And I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's the most detailed bit of the model. What I might do now though, reduce the dynamesh down a little bit so it's not too stand out. Let's turn the grips off. And there we go. I think that's Alenor finished. So, oh, I'm cracking my shoulders and my back. Nice. So she hasn't got Griblet yet. We'll have to deal with Griblet another time. But the Elven Sorceress, I just want a bit more definition there actually. There you go. So that's one Elven Sorceress complete. So, the next bit. Let's merge it together. And let's make sure the rule is visible. And I'll show you how we process them for printing. Okay, so we've got the base under our feet. I'm going to leave the base off because the base isn't part of the model. That's just to check. But obviously I can check, I can put the base, make sure that it's, oh, base is centered, bring it down to feet. Obviously you can use that for staging the model for rendering. Okay, so there is our finished Alenor. You can see she is from head to toe 10, 20, 30, 31, 32. So about 32mm to the eye line. I widened the stance a little bit, so that would have obviously shrunk her height, but by keeping the ruler the same, it maintains the actual scale. So whatever squatty pose we give her doesn't make a difference to the actual scale of the model as long as that rule stays in the scene. Okay, and the base as well. The base is always a good point of reference. So I can take that ruler now. I'm going to hide the base, move the ruler well away from the model, and I'm going to do a merge visible operation. So click on merge on the right hand menu. She's just there. I'm going to do merge visible. Okay. Now, if we come up to the top now, we'll see this extra one. We've got the tool that we're on active now. And then we've got this extra tool here that's got the ruler in the scene. We click on that, put my polygroups on, you can see all the different polygroups on everything there. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to isolate that ruler and I'm going to split it out. So that ruler is going to be called ruler, funnily enough. I'll name it ruler so I know. And then we'll change the name of this one to Alenor. Okay, now on Alenor I'm going to crank the resolution up to about 1000, or to 1000 rather, not about 1000. Stop it. Right, there we go. I'm not going to group, I'm not going to polish, I'm not going to do any of that kind of stuff. I'm just going to dynamesh it now. Now this should bring everything together, create a single solid mesh. There we go. Auto group it because I don't like the red. Okay, so there she is now. Now that she's all merged together, I'm just going to go over and just do a few little smoothing bits, bottom of her neck. So I don't want that to be a jarring transition. Just use my smooth tool there. I'm going to do here where the shoulder joints. Just going to smooth that little bit out. I was going to carve that in just to give a little bit more definition there, because that should have been to start with. This is where I'm just doing a final refining pass on the sculpt. This will pick up any a final chance to have a little look through all of those little gaps and things that get caused. Right, see there, if you can see it, right in there. It's not a huge amount, but it's still a little nook that's hidden from sight. So we might as well get rid of that. So I'm just going to blow it up. Back onto a dynamesh. Stop giving me the red one, I don't like it. Here we go. Back down. And I'm just going to use the H polish tool again, just to smooth out that little bit. Right, any of these little bits under here are going to need supporting, potentially. So I'm just going to inflate them up a little bit just to make life a little bit easier. Take out any tiny little cavities. And that bit there, that's just a no-no. So I'm just going to have to go back in with my new flake brush will do a nice job there if you need it. But be careful when you do the inflate pass here, that you're not making everything deformed. Oh. But you do want to iron out some of these little irregularities that are going to kind of come back and bite. Little bits of detail in areas you can't reach. Little hollowings, little cavities, areas where resin will get trapped. Any little nasty bits of geometry like that you just want to get out, remove. So what I would tend to do with these is give it a pass once with the inflate tool, then go back over it with the orb cracks and re-dynamesh it. I'm just going to stick with red this time. Like it knows it's annoying me. It's like when the kids find your weakness. How you Pointy? How you doing, mate? Okay, so right up there I think we've got a tiny little bit of irregularity. Now here, I talked about this before, we've got this little pitting happens on the surface where you have two objects that share the same space. So in this case her boob is occupied by both the clothing and the actual body base we started with, and you can correct it really easily by just using the smoothing and just going over it. We've got the same again on the neck here and up here on the side of the head. So these little things are the bits of this final passage just there to catch. Okay. Now I think I'm going to put a few extra hairs in there. I'm just going to make a final adjustment to a nose. Again, we're just checking for any little resin traps, any anomaly areas that we can whip out and get rid of. Anything that's going to cause problems with the mesh, with the printing, or give us a hard time when we're trying to paint it. And now's the time to correct it. Well, now's your last chance to correct it, rather. You can actually always come back and make these changes like later on. So once the model's been made and you put it into Lychee, assuming you're using Lychee anyway, it allows you to swap the models out. So you can take the existing supports. If I make a minor change to the model, I can then put that back through Lychee and it'll correct it. It'll update the mesh to like the new one. It might mean you need, if you've added anything significant, you might need to then go back in and just do a final alteration. Oh, do you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to do the knot here. Let's do that now. Nothing elaborate. hate doing that, so. Absolute bugger. Okay, so there we go. And then low intensity, larger size. I'm just going to put a few creases in there just so it's consistent with the rest. Okay, right. Now I'm happy. Save again. I'm going to decimate, and I do apologise if this causes any lag in the stream, but I'm going to go over to my decimation menu. So these are normally up here in the Z plugin, in a section called 3D Print Hub, but I've brought them down here because I use them all the time. So I'm going to do pre-process current, and what this does is this analyses the mesh. It lets Zbrush kind of get its head around what the mesh is, and then the next step of that is decimating it. So when we decimate it, the analysis allows it, the pre-processing allows Zbrush to kind of figure out where it can make economies in the mesh. So we've currently got a mesh that is 4.9 million points, and if I try and put that into most slices, it's probably going to crash and kill it. It'll take a long time to load in. You're going to lag the system if it doesn't completely crash it. So it's just not going to work. I'm going to drink a bit of a cold tea. Nice. So it's still processing 91%. This bit takes a bit of a time. I used to have on my old PC before I upgraded. This was like a painful process doing this. It took so long. So if your computer's not up to scratch and you've got a very high poly count model, it's going to take even longer to try and like think through that. Right, so it's completed now. 1 minute 1 minute 2 seconds I think was that, and I'm just going to decimate. So decimate to 20% here basically means it's going to take this 4.9 million down to about 20% of that value. So if I click decimate current, it's going to do it very quickly, and now it's just under 1 million polys. If I put my lines on, zoom in, you can still see it's quite a dense mesh, but instead of the square grid that we had there before that was super dense, we've now got a lot more of these triangles. Now the key is, when you're looking at this, the surfaces still look smooth, so I'm going to take the decimation down a little bit further to about 15-14%, and I'm going to decimate again. And it's done it, and I can't tell any difference. I'm looking at the face, I'm looking at the belt. The two detail areas, they still look the same, but we've lost 200,000 polys. And if I go into the lines again, you'll see we've got larger triangles, but the end result is still smooth surfaces, which is again what we're looking for. So I'm going to reduce decimation down even further to go to about 10. Right, now I think at this level I can start seeing some of this tessellation. So if you look at the surface here, you can see that. Now I also know that that will not show up in the model. That will not be there by the time this model is actually kind of painted. So it looks about 500,000 polys is about the lowest I can go with. Oh, do you know what I forgot to do? Turds. Let's undo a few times. Get back to 4 million. The ponytail. Suspend the cylinder in, bring that up. Shrink it so it's about the right size. And then I want to do a hold shift and control to duplicate that. Shrink it down so it's smaller. And then enlarge it. And then duplicate that and bring it down. Okay, so it gives me kind of like a Super Mario green pipe kind of look. And then I'll just divide that so it rounds it all out. Polish and Dynamesh. Okay. Now that is the clasp for the end of the hair. Let's just tuck the hair in so make sure it fits. Let's put 2 and okay, now I just need to merge that down. So I want to start with Alenor because her Dynamesh is already established. I'm going to merge that down into there. Dynamesh the two together again, and I'm happy with that. Rookie catch. I just need to check this ribbon so I can see below it. Just need to make sure. There we go. That's the bit I'm after. Right in there. I'm going to close up the entrance at this end with the inflate tool. Okay, and then just there. There's a gig in there. Just make sure that bit is not hollow. Okay. So there we're done. There is fine. I don't know what happened there, but we've got some textures come through, so I'm just going to polish that out. Polishing and smoothing. Let's get that gone. Okay. So I am happy with that, I think. So time to run that decimation again. So pre-process, this will take about a minute based on previous one. %, we're nearly there. A minute and 2 seconds last time. It seems to be taking longer this time round. Okay, reordering. Writing file to disk. Time completed 1 minute 4 seconds. So tiny touch later. Okay, so I'm going to decimate it back down to 9% because that was the level we found where it started to tessellate but not particularly noticeably. And now the model's at 483
1,000 points. Okay, so what I'm going to do now with the 100mm ruler, which you can see 100mm tall, that's what I'm using to scale the scene. I'm going to select that, that's Y, is the vertical axis in this one, so Y is up. On the Y axis, I'm scaling that to be 100mm, so my Y value is set to 100mm, and I'm going to export to STL. Okay, so I'm going to pop it in the Patreon folder. Adventurers Guild player characters, I'm going to drop it straight into here. So I'm going to go and save. Okay, so files are exported. Let's minimise that now. Next thing I always need to do is netfab. Okay, so now netfab's loaded. Now this is a super mega expensive piece of kit if you actually pay for it. They do offer it as a free version with limited functionality. So if you load it in, load your models in, it'll give you like a 30-day free trial, and at the end of the free trial it'll give you the option to just carry on using with an unlicensed version. So that is what I've done. So I've got limited functionality, but I've got the functionality that I need. So I'm going to drag and drop from that folder we just created. So in my Patreon folder, I'll find it, the Adventurers Guild player characters, and I'm just going to bring Alenor in. I don't need the ruler can be deleted. So yeah, so I'm just going to add parts, and there she is. So this is her in netfab, getting a fix. So we're going to click repair part. Yeah, click on that, part repair, and then just run repair script. Extended repair, execute. I don't actually know what this is doing, but this is closing holes, it's joining edges that are together that create problems in the mesh, but all those little things that are going to make the file error in your slicer, this is removing them all and sorting them. There's never a visible change to the mesh, and I'm never quite sure where it's done it. But once this green bar's full, I can commit the repair. Now if you see any of my models, it's usually got the file name, so the name of the character, and it's got the word repaired straight after it, and that shows you that it's been through this process. Okay, so if I auto update this now, you can see it's got X number of edges, X number of triangles, it's one shell, it's got no border edges, no faces with an inverted orientation, and there's no holes. So that is as good as I need it to be. Apply the repair, remove the old part, and now it's got a repaired appended to the thing. I'm just going to right click, export that part as an STL, and that's going to generate a final check on the way out. So it says it's still found 32 degenerated triangles and 160 manifold edges. Click on optimize, optimize even, and hopefully that turns into a green tick. No. So it's still got a few manifold edges, it thinks it's going to get split. I've got no idea why, but there's nothing else I can do to that, so I have to accept that and save it as is. Close that down, don't need to save it, and then I'm going to open Lightree just to check it.
so I'm going to add my repaired file into Lychee. Right, now if Lychee is detecting issues with this will be showing as a red mesh, and obviously it's not, so that's good. Should rotate it to about that angle, I think. About there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do on Lychee, I think, just do a little bit of support with you. Get it done. We're going to go to medium setting. Tip diameter 28 is fine. Tip length 2. Tip diameter 1. Shaft diameter 1. So from there, auto support with a low density and generate. That's going to raise the model up about 5mm off the build plates. It's going to create a load of supports. Now I want to take those supports, select the bracing supports and delete them. Okay. Now I'm going to go through this pass now, and I'm going to look for any supports that are in the wrong location. So I don't want all these crossovers, so I'm going to hold Alt and I'm going to bring any supports into other supports where I think it warrants it. So I can clear a lot of the ground space. Oh, am I doing that? I can't. I have to delete a few occasionally. I can right click on them as well, make them straight. The hell happened with that one? That's an anomaly. Let's just delete that one. We'll put them in afterwards. So what I don't want these braces. I don't want supports connecting to like this, where we've got the hands coming up here. I'm going to bring that over there. Take the brace. It's not bracing, is it? That's the bracing. Let's take the bracing out. That is another bracing. So even though I've selected braces and deleted them, there's still a load in there. Now it doesn't matter if I delete supports here because this is an early pass. Right, so this is the kind of thing that annoys me in here. No worries, Bazooka mate. Good stuff. You take it easy, man. Right, so so what happens is for some reason Lychee throws all these supports in and then decides that they belong, they want to span huge gaps with them, and there's no need for that. I don't quite understand the kind of the logic behind some of the support placements. Because what you really don't want is you don't want them crossing over like legs and things. It makes it really difficult to try and remove the model from the supports later on. So yeah, I often try and just I'll use some fan supports for these, so these can come out. Let's make that a support pillar on that one. Support pillars are just straight vertical supports, so they're good for like the ones that are on the bottom of the model. So maybe not that one. And again, things like this, it just irritates me. You don't need those supports sprawling all over the place. So while I'm doing this, I'll talk a little bit about supporting. So with supports, you've got two types of supports you need to include and you need to consider. You've got structural supports, which are hefty ones, and they are holding the model to the build plate, and they're also stopping that model from wobbling. So as that model grows and prints more and more and more, if you've got really weak, thin supports, as the model gets bigger and bigger and bigger, there's a chance that model can just wobble a little bit. And then what you'll find is these little wobble lines of the height of the model, always on the print axis. So having some anchor supports that have got a thick diameter and a decent connection point means that that model is going to get held in place all the way through. You could also use like a little scaffold type arrangement, just something that's a bit more rigid, like a little triangular form of like 3 supports going up with bracings between them, or a single solid core. So a decent heavy support here and there, just to kind of make sure you get that good connection. But once you've got your structurals in, hey Donny, thanks for tuning in, mate. Once you've got your structural supports in, you can then go on to enabling supports. So you've got all these little details that you need to print, and they need supports there to enable them to print. So that's where you're picking up islands and stuff. And you'll find that you'll need a lot more enabling supports than you'll need structural supports. So this first pass, all I'm looking at is structural ones. So any area that is going to be supporting any amount of weight, I need to make sure it's got a decent support going into it. So I'm just going to take this from here. I'm just going to relocate that over here. This one I'm going to try and put onto the same one again. Except it doesn't like that. Oh, that's because it's under there. Why is it so... Delete. It does these silly things sometimes. Like that, it's passing through all these points to get to where it's going. I don't even understand what the problem is with that. Just delete it and fix it later. And that again, what's with this huge diagonal run? Let me just fix it onto there. I'll get it one day, I'm sure. It's getting better and better, these slicers are. And Lychee's one of the best out there, so. Well, a good shot, I'd say, as well. That one I'm going to click on mini support, turn it into a mini one. Not because we're supporting a mini, of course, but again, stop it. Makes no sense, completely unneeded. These ones are dragging back from there, so let's bring that to here. That one's right over there, so let's just put that one where it belongs. Hey Andrew, thanks for joining in. Thanks for joining the stream. You missed the sculpting, unfortunately. I'm just on the supports now. I think I'll make that a mini one as well. Why
No, wait, I'll just shrink it down to a light. Okay, over here, I'm just going to delete that. So yeah, so this is me just sanitizing an auto support. You could place them all manually, but just never do. Okay. So under here, so we've got these crossover points are the ones I'm really trying to avoid. So I'm just going to bring that over to here. That can go onto that one. That's another. Because these crossing points, arguably, they do give you some strength to your supports, but they also can tangle the model. So you just need to be careful about the placement of the branch offs. So these ones are much better placed. Picking up off there. Okay, so all of these are medium tips, so that's a 0.28 connection. So 0.28 millimeter connection. We've got yeah, I thought it was. Trying to navigate through this like forest of support sometimes it'd be a nuisance, but there we go. Try and remove any unnecessary lengths of support that's going to cause me problems. That one doesn't need to be there like that. That's silly. Okay, so first thing we're going to do now is going to reinforce the feet connections. Okay, so we've got medium supports. We've got another one at the heel. See where that white ridge, that white ring comes down into the smallest point. That's the bottom of the model, which is basically where that support is. So around there, what I need to do, I'm going to put a little ring. Let's try support paints. We have a little ring of supports. Drop a few intermediate ones. This will give that bottom connection. This will help to anchor it. So I know I was saying about the anchor points being like a larger, more significant one, but the larger ones, they also need to be cut away and removed, and that can cause you problems on the miniature, because when you take a large support, you cut it off, you end up with like a fairly significant amount of surface damage. Whereas these ones will break away without any dramas. And the extra number of supports at the bottom there helps with the contact surface area. Okay, so Next thing to do, we're going to go to islands over here, and I'm going to do so this is a tip from Ty. So I've got a section called a printer set up called island detection. So a 300 micron pass, 150 micron pass, 75 micron pass, and a 25 micron pass. So I'm going to use the 300 micron pass, and I'm going to run island detection with real accuracy, and that's going to basically it's going to scan the model in 300 micron intervals and find any islands. So it will find a few. That's detected none. Okay, so at 300 microns, this auto support has done its job. So second pass 150 microns. Search again. Right, it's found 10 islands, so these will be little red spots on here. So I'm going to take a medium support. I'm going to put one medium support on each of these islands, just to make sure that we're covered off. So a little one there. Now some of these are going to be mini supports because they don't need to be full sized. And some of them you can just literally move the one that was already there, because for some reason it places them on auto supports and then misses the actual island. So yeah, you can relocate things if you need to. You don't always need more supports. Now this one being an ear, I'm just going to use a mini support for that one. And that's no good because it's passing through the head. So make it a light one, but I'm going to shrink the tip down down. Okay. There's one, just on the back of the sleeve. Okay, and I'll click show on that one. It's going to show me where it is. Right, it's a bit of a hidden on this one. That's the underside of the fur here, so I'm just going to click in the middle of that, click it to there, and then make it a mini. Okay, now that the yellow checkers have come back on, yellow and orange checkers have come back, that means that all the islands are complete. Now if I was printing this at 150 micron layers, I know that's going to print fine, but we're not, we're printing it at 25 micron, so I'm going to go to my actual printer, the Frozen with the Aqua 4K, and I'm going to do a final island detect using that. so we've got 41 islands. You have got the option, by the way, in here. You can just click Add Support to all islands. It'll just use whatever current settings you've got. But I know I don't want to do that. Oh. I'm just going to go around literally just every single time you get a red one. I'm just going to go and pick a support. I'm going to connect another one to a support. So one that's nearby and making sure it doesn't cross the detail of the model. Now these I'm using light ones for because these are what I was saying about as enabling supports. They're not structural. The structural bit's been done. These are just allowing the model to print. Right, now in this case we've got two islands very, very close to each other. If I'm careful about that position, I should be able to get both of them with one support. Like that. There we go. And then, what's up here? Font. Flame. I'll make it light again. That flame up here. The little tip of the wrist cuff, I'll make that into a light one. We've got a few there, we've got some going on the fur. So while we've been doing this sculpt today, got the heating on in my office, and we've got it up to about 24 degrees. So I'm in a good position to get this thrown on the test print. So I'll get it on a test print in a minute. Excuse my silence at the moment while I'm concentrating on this. Okay, so 9 islands left. Looks like they're all on the hair. Two islands left. Right, now if you can't see them on the right hand side here, we've got a little bar
And that'll show you roughly where they are in the height of the model. You can use the little snapper at the bottom there to fly up. So here, around this level here, I should be seeing it. Switch off the bottom and bring it down. I should see somewhere in a second. Should see that island up here. I can't see it. Can't see anything. I'm guessing it's got to be the fur over here at the bottom of the skirt, 'cause that's roughly about where. Ah, there it is. I'm going low enough. So I was right. It was the fur on the skirt. And the last one is up here somewhere. Maybe on the hands or... No, I can't see. I'm just gonna cheat on this one. I'm just gonna say show me. Oh, there it is. Right on the end of the stuff. Okay, so there she is. So she's now processed for 25 micron support printing. So I'm just going to throw a raft on. I'm going to make the raft thin because I don't need it that thick. Make it 0.20 millimeters thick, and that'll just help to get it off the plate a little bit easier. And then the only thing I just want to go and do now is, do I need to? I'm just going to change that one to a heavy support. I'm going to change that one to a heavy support and be a pillar. That one's going to be a heavy. Just a few key ones there, and could probably do with one on the hand, so maybe that one. Change the tip diameter on that one down a little bit. Okay. So that one as well I'm going to put as a heavy. Oh, and here I took them all out. It hasn't detected any islands, but I'm going to put a few fan supports in there just to. There you go, that just gives it a little bit of extra assistance holding on. Let's go put an extra one on the end there just to make sure. Now sometimes I do run them around the edge of a skirt line like that, but I don't think it is absolutely necessary here. I'm going to make that heavy. In fact, that is going to come to its own thing, a big pillar. Lovely. So that's another structural job. Anywhere else I think I need them. going to pop a couple of lights in here where this changes direction. May not be needed, but I know they're going to remove nice and easy anyway, so it's not going to cause a lot of damage. It is just going to help that to stay upright in the print. And I think I'm good. Right, so I'm going to save that now as Alenor. Supports. Done. And I'm also going to export selected 3D model as Alenor supports as an STL. So if anybody doesn't use Live Sheet, you'll be able to use it on here. Okay, so she's ready to rock. We'll get a little Make Griblet done next on the next stream. And then, yeah, they can go into the folder and you can have them on the Patreon. So if you want to get these, in fact I'll load her into the Patreon folder now. So if you'd like to get her while I'm doing a test print, if you haven't already, you can sign up at patreon.com/LTminis. And yeah, there'll be a link on the Patreon shortly and you'll be able to get hold of her. Right, now Pointy gave me some pointers funny enough after my last stream about like raiding and stuff. I'm not going to do that right now, largely because I've got to try and find it and I can't remember how to do it, so find someone to raid Milk Moans. How do I do it again, Pointy? Is it in the messages? So raid Milk Moans. Yeah, I've still got to set up commands and everything at the moment. I'm still mega noob at the moment, mate. So if you've got any pointers, if you want to ping one to me on a DM or something later, they'll be all appreciated. So yeah, so right. So let's go raid Milk Moans. Oh, Mike Moans. Sorry, not Mike, not Milk Moans. Okay, let's do that. I accidentally killed it. Okay guys, so we're going over. And you're in. Okay. Right, guys, I'm gonna duck out. I'm gonna leave you guys with Mike. So thanks again for the stream. We'll catch you all later. Adios.